Steve, as you know, I picked up fishing recently, and we talked about this on the podcast. Apparently, been using the wrong fishing line. I have been using 17-pound weight fishing line for trying to catch 5-pound fish.
Okay. So not working too well.
So not working too well. So I did go buy a new fishing rod this weekend because it's, I could just take the line off, but it's just easier to get a new rod. Now you have 2 rods, and
right.
I see how people spend money on
one
this.
for little fish and one for big fish.
Yeah. So that's the update on the Darian Summers fishing extravaganza. That's about it for this week's podcast. No, just kidding. This podcast is called The Stuff Summer Says Podcast with
Steve.
And we have great booking get. Probably one of our biggest booking gets yet to date. Great job by our booking agent. Head coach of the Penn State women's basketball team, Carolyn Kieger, joins us as the dogs bark. It's a great conversation, and we'll chat through it on the other side of the podcast. But it really, I feel good about it. I feel better about it, I guess, where the Lady Lions stand, I think. And then we have some news to discuss today that came out, and also I have solved Beaver Stadium's stadium entry at least issues. I'll get to that.
So we got a lot.
Yeah.
Good guess. We got breaking news, and we got a solution.
Yeah, we'll be proactive podcast. Listen to our interview with Carolyn Kieger, and we'll be back after this. Steve, we're working our way through the roster of Penn State coaches, and I love the Lady Lions, so I am thrilled to be hosting a podcast with head coach of the Lady Lions, Carolyn Kieger. She joins us today. How are you?
I'm doing great. I really appreciate you guys having me on today. A beautiful sunny weekend here in State College, so couldn't get better than that than a summer with sunshine.
There we go.
And heat. Do you like the heat, or would you like it toned down a little bit?
No, bring it on. Bring the heat on. We actually hiked Mount Nittany on Saturday and got a great sweat in, so it was perfect.
That was when it was not too bad. So you're all right there. You're all right there. All right. I want this to be a forward-looking conversation because there's a lot of change, a lot of things going on. I think, to be fair, I think I want to briefly go back to last season, and I want to get a one-word answer out of you, if that is fair, and I promise it'll be a forward-looking conversation. One word to describe last season for you.
Turnovers.
Turnovers? Okay. All right.
Obviously that's one, for us to continue to fix, but we were in so many games last year. If you really look, obviously we won one Big Ten game, but we only got blown out by 2. And I thought we had a chance to put ourselves in a position to win, and unfortunately turned the ball over way too much and didn't necessarily have the personnel late game to kind of want the ball or to really thrive, in those tight moments. But I'm really excited about what we were able to do with the transfer portal and the pieces we were able to keep and the pieces we were able to bring in, and honestly the coaching staff. So I'm excited to dive into the future because I think we got some big things coming here, and I think the future is really bright.
So I guess let's start there, because I think that's kind of the off season is the time to address those things. What have you been doing? I know you've hired Jason Crafton, but and you've pulled from the portal, and obviously you have a recruiting class new class of kids coming in. So what does the off season look like, and how do you set yourself up to succeed now in the fall?
Yeah, I think, well, first and foremost, it was, developing a roster and getting pieces that we thought would be great additions to the culture that we're trying to build and the style of play we're trying to get to. Obviously, Keomi McMiller was a huge pickup for us. And, in my mind, I think she's the best point guard in the country. I recruited her really hard the first time around. Obviously didn't get her. And, I've been watching her and been a fan of her family and her for, the last couple of years now. So I'm really excited, not only for our team, our staff, but our fans. She's very electric. She's a winner. She wants to win, wants to play at the highest level. And best thing I think about Keomi is she loves to work. She loves to be in the lab. She loves to get better. And she is an old school gym rat.
How does that? Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. How I'm curious about that, because I think that's one of the things that's even your career has changed a lot. Is you're always never not recruiting, but now you're always never not recruiting kids that even maybe you didn't have a shot at with the transfer portal. How has that changed your job, and how have you approached that?
Well, it's interesting because obviously when you're recruiting high schoolers, right? Before that's what majority of our job was. You got to recruit the high schools, you got to recruit the AAU coaches, and you built, really genuine, authentic, deep relationships with these coaches and with these players. And now with the transfer portal, things are a little bit different. Your list is a little bit shorter when it comes to high school players. You don't recruit as many of them. However, it's still really important to be able to build those relationships with those players because you never know when it's going to come cyclical and come back around. And you built that relationship the first time around, and there's that trust built up. There's that camaraderie already there, that is to lean on to when they do enter the transfer portal, or if they do. So I think that the high school recruiting is still going to be the pipeline of what we do. And obviously filling in transfer portal pieces as they seem fit, and will work with our culture. So I think it's a healthy balance of both, but it has changed everything that we do. But I still think you have to go back to relationships and building up that authentic connection.
How do you culture? Coaches always talk about culture and building that. How do you do that? Like, I mean, football coaches, Joe Paterno famously would say, "Oh, I watched a kid play basketball. I learned something about him," right? Like, what is your shortcut, your Cliff's notes for trying to figure out culture with somebody? Because you don't have as much time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. It's a lot harder. You got to ask the right questions. I think you got to dive deep into the background of the why. And I think you got to get to the people that really know them, and not just settle for a couple conversations with the student athlete. You got to get to know their circle of influence. You got to really get to know their goals. What are their core principles? What is their plan, and what is their process in order to be successful in that plan? And we're starting to ask young women these questions that they might not have necessarily been ready to answer earlier on in their career, but now that we're making investment in them, and with the things with college athletics now is it's essentially pay for play with name, image, and likeness. So how do you quote unquote ask the right interview questions of the employee, and get to know that they're the right fit, like you said, Steve, for the culture? And I think sometimes, unfortunately, you're going to have to take a gamble here or there because the window is so short in the portal. But that's why we like to recruit players that we recruited the first time, and we recruited them in high school. So we have that built-in trust already, versus trying to go recruit somebody in a week that you might not necessarily know or have built trust up with yet.
You knew coaching was X's and O's. You knew it was kind of relationships. When did it become being a private eye too? Like, and having to try to figure this stuff out. I mean, because there is that piece of it, right? You're trying to figure out the right question to ask because they're trying to sell you something too, right? So you need to suss that out. So how can you give me a scouting report on you as a private detective / recruiter that way? Like, how do you think you are that way?
Well, it's funny you say that because we have a sheet that we have on every recruit, and we call it the game plan. But before we called it the game plan, we used to call it like basically the FBI file, right? So, you would have all the information on the student athlete and do a deep dive on them. Because like you said, culture, we still know is what wins, right? Long term. And I think you go out and you find the teams that are winning, it's because they have great leadership, right? And they have great point guards, or they have great quarterbacks, or they have great leaders in the locker room taking charge and driving the culture. So for me, in that FBI file or the game plan, it's, we literally have the questions we want to ask them about what it means to be elite to you. Because what being a culture driver and what being a servant leader is to me might mean very different things to them. So I want to hear it from their own mouth, right? And not just take somebody else's word from it, and dive deep. And I think for us, especially where we're at in our program of wanting and needing to get to where we want to go, we can't take any shortcuts, and we have to do it the right way because we need the right pieces to do this rebuild, and we need the right pieces to get us over this hump.
When you go back to reach out to a player that you recruited and then they're back in the portal, What's that conversation like? I have to imagine it's slightly awkward. It's probably a little bit like reaching out to an ex, maybe. I don't know.
Recruiting's always been very similar to dating, right? It's very funny that you bring that analogy up. But yeah, I mean, it's, hey, reconnecting, been following your career, really excited to reconnect. Been watching from afar, and hope the family's doing well. Let me know a time we can connect. And then boom, it's kind of like you never skipped a beat, right? And they want to know too. They want to get it right the second time around as well. So there's pressure on both sides to get it right. When a young woman or a young man enters the portal, I don't think nobody really has the plan to go in the portal 2, 3, 4 times. So I think the second time around, they want to get it right, just like we do.
What?
Go ahead, Jan.
What is that conversation like then from the NIL aspect? And how does that fit in? Because I'm just going to project here, but we hear it from the media, even though we're interviewing you right now, but we hear it from the media of like these deals and things like that. How does that conversation then come about?
So it depends on the player.
Okay.
I think it depends on the sport. Obviously some sports are dealing with rev share and name, image, and likeness at a way higher rate than others. Just the nature of the NCAA right now and how it's working. But initially, the way we like to handle it is build the relationship first, talk everything X's and O's, talk everything education, talk everything that the student athlete is coming to Penn State for other than the number, right? So we leave the number for the last thing. Obviously doing our background and talking to other people in their circle of influence on, what are some other offers they have gotten. Some of the times we're dealing with agents now, a lot of the time. So some of the young women don't even want to have those conversations and they want to, move that to a parent or to an agent. So it really depends on the situation. But I think first and foremost, it starts with the relationship and then gets down to what the number is. And then they take all their information and all their I's and their T's that they crossed and dotted and, try to come up with the pros and cons. And sometimes it does come down just to the contract and the number. And then if you have an even number, which obviously I think is going to become more and more common now with the way rev share is, what separates that number? Here's the companies, what company is best for them.
With Jason in the GM edition, what comes off your plate? I mean, I read the release and say, roster development, that makes sense to me. And I think I know what that is. And I appreciate how forthcoming you are about NIL because I think I understand. To getting this money and I would be getting that, right? So, but what does he take off the plate for you then or help you do that's going to make that position valuable for you?
Yeah, it's going to be game changing for me. Obviously, he comes with a wealth of experience, and I love that he's had NBA experience because he's been around contracts, he's been around salary caps, and he's been around other things. And I think being on the men's side as well, the numbers have kind of been there for a few years as our numbers are catching up. So I think it made a lot of sense. I think he's beyond a home run for myself and our program. But some things he's definitely gonna to take off my plate is conversations with agents. Before we had him here, I was doing all the negotiating and talking to the agents and stuff. So there will allow like a separation between the head coach and the student athlete or the agent, which I think will be really important. He's gonna help me with data in analyzing professional markets and now the NCAA and the women's basketball landscape. What are certain players going for? What's the market, share value of player X versus player Y? What are top point guards going for? What are top posts going for? How do we manage our roster? Where should we be spending more on depending on what position they are? Like these are all things that are obviously really new to women's college basketball. And ones that I think is going to be a separator, right? It's very easy to have a player like Juju Watkins or Caitlin Clark and know that, they're worth X because the entire world knows that they are. I think it gets a little bit more hard when you get into the roster management side of things for, we have 15 young women. I think we're going to have about 13 this year on our roster. So those type of things, dealing with donors, dealing with raising excellent fund dollars to continue to stay relevant and get relevant really on our side right now is we need to close the gap of where Penn State women's basketball has been compared to the rest of the Big Ten in terms of name, image, and likeness. And I think he's really going to help me do that from raising awareness and really going after top prospects to help us get the funds we need to compete for a national championship on the women's side.
How do you go about hiring Jason? And I ask that more so from the sense of like, how do you know that he was a role that would, aside from the actual X's and O's of it, how did you know that he would make your life easier? Or how did you know that this was a right thing for Penn State to do? Because not every program has a GM right now.
Yeah, well, I think also some programs are going straight GM and not having them coach as well. I think it depends. I think I was lucky to find someone that could do both and kind of knock out two birds with one stone. Obviously, you know, I have a coaching search firm that helps with names and fit that would be fit for our program right now and what we need and what I'm looking for and where we're trying to go. And his name got brought up, and the more I got to kind of hear his background, I thought he would be perfect. And then after the first conversation I had with him, I knew that he was the one I had to get. And kind of one of those deals where you know immediately that he's the one to help. And I couldn't be more pleased with what he's been able to do and help me with in only 2 weeks.
My job in this podcast is we got this old guy, young guy thing going on.
I love
it. I'm curious. You're not old, but the used word gym rat, and you played in a time when this wasn't what women's basketball was. I'm still building my relationship with college sports because of the change, but I get to have that choice. I don't live it. It's not my lifeblood. I'm like, this is the world. So what? But I don't. How long did it take you to say, okay, oh yeah, she's okay, but God, in my day, we wouldn't have paid her for that. Now we're like, how have you built that bridge with understanding this is the new normal and you've got to make it work and you got to win to keep your gig, you know?
Well, first of all, that's a very fair statement from you. And I think a lot of fans right now trying to navigate this and figure this out, right? It's a new age, it's a new era. And how do you pivot to accept what is current? I think for me, it's always been about winning and competing and striving for something bigger than yourself. Right. And that's what I love about college sports. That's why I only played team sports. I love the name on the front way more than the name on the back to play with that old school mentality. Right. And in the case of Penn State, no name on the back, right? Like all about the name on the front. So, for me, it's how do I figure out how to still build culture where it's we above me in this new age while still being able to market our young women and help them become the best versions of themselves and fight for their brand and become individuals, but still stay connected with a common goal, which is to represent Penn State at the highest of level. Right. So I'm not going to lie. I'm still figuring that out and how to do that. And I think there's a lot of us right now that are understanding the amazing ways that this can add to a young woman's life or a young man's life and the opportunities that it is bringing them, but still trying to figure out how to keep the team element and the university element thriving and alive. I look at Katie's team last year with women's volleyball. I think that's an excellent example of a team that just bought in to something completely bigger than themselves. And I get chills thinking about it. And, watching how much joy they had playing with each other and for each other was special. And you get to see those awesome examples. And that makes you believe that it still exists and that it's out there. And we got to figure out how to synergize the two together.
You talked about NIL, Penn State being behind a little bit. Are those the kind of things you take to Pat Kraft? Like, or how do you like, what is your, like, how do you go to the AD? How does a coach deal with an AD or work with an AD in your situation? Because you have a sport administrator and everything else, but it seems like you got to have a relationship with that guy because, controls the job. So what kind of things do you take to him or make him aware of?
Well, first of all, I think everybody has the same goal, which is to see, Penn State women's and men's basketball become relevant and get Lady Lions basketball back on the map. How we do that is going to look very different than it was 10 years ago, than it was 20 years ago. It is a very different landscape. And so I think my job as a head coach is to look at the program, look at other programs in the Big Ten, look at other programs in the top 25 and figure out what they have, what we don't, and figure out how to close that gap. Whether it's something that I'm not doing, that my staff's not doing, that we're not supporting for our student athletes, or that we need more of, or maybe we need to pivot and do less of this and more of that. Like that's my job then to bring those things to Pat and then have him analyze what he agrees with or disagrees with. But I think when it came to this rev share and what women's basketball across the board needed in order to succeed, I thought he did a great job in conversations with myself and, our sport administrator to make sure we were on the even playing field with the rest of the Big Ten to be able to compete, which I can confidently say next year, I think we definitely are, which will be game changing for us from last year. And I think it's going to be refreshing to be on an even playing field with these teams and really go to battle and fight for Penn State. But yeah, I mean, I thought Pat and administration did a really good job looking at all the data and all the analytics to see what made sense.
Thanks.
What have we had Pav on about 3 weeks ago, and he joked that he was going to the beach and that he was said Friday the house thing was going to come down, and sure enough, house thing came down on Friday. What have the last, I think it's been about 3 weeks now, what have those 3 weeks been like for not just you, but all of the coaches, everybody at Penn State since it's rolled out?
I think we did such a good job preparing for it and knowing it was coming. So for us in our sport, we had been preparing for it. So nothing really different happened or changed. We just needed to make a few tweaks here or there, but we prepared for it. And I think Pat Kraft and the whole administration prepared for it really well. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy for any Big Ten school to just come up with, $22 million and figure it out. But, I think for us as a university, we did as good of a job as we could to speculate and to have things ready in case it did pass. And now we're here and we're moving with plan A that we already had lined up.
Okay. What impresses you the most about working with Pat Kraft?
His competitiveness. I love being around his energy. I love being around someone who has a very high standard for everybody around him. I think that's infectious and that's the way, I was brought up and that's the way I was raised. And that's the way I love to think about things is if you're going to do it, you might as well strive to be the best and then, obviously fail forward and get back up and dust yourself off and go do it again and figure out how to continue to push forward. And, I just love his competitiveness and his fierce nature.
Did you just do what impresses you the most about the guy you've been picking on?
I haven't been picking on him, okay? I just want to make that clear. I have been.
My God, what a charlatan!
Incredibly critiquing him. Okay.
Good Lord.
Hey, that's what sports are,
Thank
right?
you. There we go. One of his employees agrees
and
Wow.
we signed up for this.
Okay.
Signed up for it. I don't know why, but we all did.
So what's it been like for you? Like has this been harder than you thought to get to this program to where you wanted it?
I mean, hands down. But I also, I didn't. First of all, COVID. I mean that completely. I mean, what? 7 months after you take the job, you get hit with a world pandemic for 2 years, and you can't recruit, and you can't build, and you can't do the things that it takes to build a program. You can't go build authentic relationships with the community, with the donors, with recruits. I think my second 2 recruiting classes, I didn't even meet them in person before they stepped on campus.
Wow.
So you talk about building relationships with people. I mean, that was hard. I mean, that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life was try to build a program in the middle of that. And then coming out of that, you get hit with the portal. Okay. So now, kids can transfer whenever they want. The loyalty factor is gone. The, push through hard is gone, you name it. And then now name, image, and likeness happens. So it's kind of been, I knew Penn State was going to take a minute for us to get back to where we wanted it to be. I didn't know we were going to be hit with those 4 major things in the process. I thought 2 years ago, we had it in a really good spot. I thought we were a Sweet 16 team. And then unfortunately Taylor Valladay goes down. We lose our engine. We lose our muscle, our PG, and I still believe we should have been in that tournament that year and got left out. Was one of the first teams out. And then name, image, and likeness happened, and we didn't have what we needed to go into that portal to get what we needed, unfortunately. Here we are now, a year later, in a completely different spot, roster-wise, staff-wise, feeling like we can be right back to where we were, ready to be a Sweet 16 team. I feel good about that. But no, I mean, I didn't think it would take this long, and it's tested me in ways I never knew were possible. And I think you really find out what you're made of and what's important to you as you go through failure after failure. But as every good sports story that's ever been written, it's what comes after failure, and that's why we watch sports. We watch teams that can come from the bottom to rise to the top, and what are the makings of that? So I'm prepped for it. I was born for this, and I'm ready to show not only Penn State but the world and our players that they belong and we belong. And I'm just really excited to win.
Cool. Hey, last one for me. I'm curious where you're at in your schedule.
Yeah.
You talked about taking the team and doing some team building. Is this schedule building time now? Is that done and going to be announced eventually? And not that I'm looking for games. I'm just curious, like how your schedule works at this time of year leading up to the season. Like, what are the next mileposts?
Yeah, so we'll start with they just got here last week, so we're in week 2 right now of an 8-week schedule. So this summer is a lot about skills and drills. It's a lot about building strength and power and speed. It's about building camaraderie and trust amongst each other. So like you said, a lot of team building, a lot of team meals, just a lot of just time together spent in State College in the summer. I love State College in the summer, and I love being on campus when there's not as many people, so you really get to know and build relationships. So that's the next 8 weeks. Then they have a couple weeks off before they hit fall semester. So they take a class this summer. Once that finishes up, they go right into fall semester. And then we have like what you would consider our preseason, where we got a couple months, to get everything nice and tight and right before the season hits. And then, we enter our first game in, I think it's November 3rd this year. And then, we play 11 non-conference games before we play 18 Big Ten games. And hopefully, Steve, that non-con can be released here pretty quick. But we got a really big time away game that I'm really excited about against one of the best teams in the country. And then working on a really good tournament that I think will be great team building and experience, but trying to put together a schedule that can be an Elite Eight schedule for us, not only net wise, but experience wise, so we can play some heavy games to prepare us for the Big Ten.
All right, cool. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Last question to let you out of here. What is your go-to creamery ice cream flavor?
Well, I'm a sweet tooth, okay. So I love it all. Death by chocolate has to be up there. I probably think that would be my number one right now. I like the alumni swirl. Peachy Paterno, you name it. I will never say no to a good cup of creamery ice cream. And I know you can't blend the flavors, so that was a rule I had to learn early, but if I could, I would take all of them and get like 3 different scoops and just try everything. But I love summer in State College. I really do. So if anyone's in town and wants to come watch a practice, let me know, because I open up the gym to anyone. And I think we got some really amazing hoopers in the lab right now in the off season that are, loading to explode this year. So if anyone's in town, hit me up and I'll let you in the gym and you can watch the family practice.
There we go. Cool. I love that. That's awesome. All right, Coach. Well, thank you for joining us. This was awesome. This was a great conversation. Good luck this season. I will say, as Steve mentioned earlier, Erica Dombach was on here. She went on a pretty late run. Guy Godowski was on this podcast, and he went all the way to the Frozen Four. We don't know what Pav's going to do this season, but we're hoping that the trend continues. So hopefully you'll kind of boost our data.
Very confident it will. Okay. So when we win this year and we get to where we want to get to, we'll go back to this podcast. Okay.
That's exactly right. Yes, 100%. Cool.
Thank you.
100%.
I appreciate you guys. We are.
Thank you. Steve, I said before the podcast, she addressed or made me feel good, feel confident, feel just better about the state of the Lady Lions, because objectively probably one of the teams I do care the most about are the Lady Lions. Went to a lot of Lady Lions games as a student, watched a lot of Lady Lion games, and have really struggled with their performance, particularly last season. And yet at the same time, she addressed it and explained it, and also made me excited for next season. And I think that made me feel better. And I really enjoyed the honesty we got from her there. I felt that she gave with us.
Yeah, I wanted to lean through the screen and give her a big hug when she talked about NIL and pay for play, and use those words appropriately, I thought. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're here to play gotcha or whatever else, but it was wonderful. I thought she was forthright. It was fair. Yes, it's the off season. They haven't lost a game yet. They're getting new players. It should be a wonderful time for rainbows and sunshine. But her case is logical, and she came right at stuff. So I appreciate that, and I hope they do well. Like, I think Penn State women's basketball, I grew up and was in college. It was always good, and it's one of the missing pieces for the athletic program in terms of, I think, being good could bring people back if they do some marketing things and some other things to help it out too. But I'm excited for them. I hope it works out.
And I appreciate even her saying, because I think one of our things is the community aspect. She's like, it was really hard to develop a community relationship, and she's working through that. And I thought her opening the doors to practice. I mean, there are not many other, if any other, coaches doing that right now on Penn State's campus, which I think is an awesome gesture. So yeah, credit to her, and we appreciate her eclectic creamery ice cream rotation. That's a responsible Penn Stater right there, I think.
Yeah, pretty much any and all, as long as it's cold and sweet. She's yeah.
I think that's good. That's a good approach to have it. All right. The news of the day. Shall we get there?
Breaking news. What is it?
It wasn't breaking news, but we're both fired up about it. Let me get to it. And that is this article that came out today on gopsusports.com, or a press release that came out today. Penn State launches student-athlete-driven Roar Plus platform. The platform is a collaboration between Penn State Athletics, Play-Fi Max, and Lockerverse. Yeah. Basically, I don't even know where to begin with this. But I don't even know how to begin to describe this to you. It seems that Penn State Athletics said to its student athletes, you guys can create your own, not social media, maybe news channel, news outlet, publication, if you will, content making machine, and make money off of it. And that's what we're going after here with this Roar Plus. I am fine. I love the ingenuity of the idea. I want to make that crystal clear off the start for what I am about to say. I think it's a great, clever, smart, unique, fascinating idea. I just really struggle with the price on this thing. Let me get to the website here. roarplus.co is the website. And for a membership to this, there is the white level and the blue level. The white level is $15 a month. The blue level is $25 a month. Or you can spend $144 or $240 a year to have this subscription. That gets you, if you have the white membership, the premium access to Roar Plus app content, a quarterly newsletter, chat with other Roar Plus fans. Or in the blue level, it also gets exclusive interviews with coaches, breaking news, game time, alerts, coaching changes, players returning, all of those things. All of that is to say that's a lot of money to be paying for another subscription that I'm not sure. Actually, I'm very confident that I don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze in terms of that subscription for me.
Well, you didn't even mention the Nittany Elite level, which is $100 a month, right?
Oh,
and you can chat with players and coaches, right? Which doesn't sound at all like, well, it sounds like a lot of other things. And then there's the $250 a month, which gets you into yet another partnership level of you. It gets you into LeVar Arrington's tailgates with the Stick City tailgates, right? Because there's another group that's involved with this, along with Playfly Max and Penn State and that other group that was mentioned in the release, whose name I hadn't heard before. It just feels like we're slicing the pie up in so many pieces that I don't know that there's money in those pieces. Like, that's the interesting thing to me. And then the blue and white levels, just when we're right on the level, like the blue level is the level that gets you breaking news, game time, coaching changes. So at the white level, you don't get that. And if, like, and it's not like that the information isn't readily available in 16 other places.
That's exactly
right?
what.
So why would you pay for it? Like I appreciate the ingenuity. Well, it's not the. I don't know that ingenuity is the right word. I appreciate the effort because everybody's doing this. Let's find a way to create content. As someone who works in a communications program that produces people that are going to create this content, and we may, who knows? I don't know if we ever. I don't think we ever part of this, but like our students may become people who go out and help write that newsletter or do something along the line. So good for them if there's a job there. It just feels like this is just slicing the pie. I don't know who the person is that's paying for this, right? Like even at the top levels, right? Like if you're a big donor, you're getting all that information already. You're doing something else. It feels like they're fighting amongst themselves for some of this revenue, but they've got to try to find a place to find it, I guess.
Fired you up. You were fired up about it today, all day, and I didn't think you were going to be that fired up about it on the podcast. Here you are, and you are pretty fired up about it.
It just seems. I'm trying. It just seems. Doesn't it seem silly?
Yeah, there it is.
Doesn't it?
Death,
is that
taxes,
the word you expected?
Steve saying something is silly about NIL.
I'm sorry.
No, I think that's very fair.
So you baited me, basically.
Yeah. No, and I think that's very fair. And I think that is the biggest thing that I have with this. This could be worth the $15 a month to me. It could be. And Lord knows, Brian Tripp, all-time leading guest, Stuff Summer Says guest.
He was the most appealing part of this thing, honestly, to be able to hear more Brian and not suck it up to him, but to be able to hear more of content from him that he's been a part of. That's the most appealing part of this to me.
To me, the most appealing is the LeVar Arrington and James Franklin conversation. What is going to happen to that? But are we really going to get something that unique? And are we going to get that? Are we just going to get a repackaging of the radio show? Steve Jones's interview with him before the game on the radio. Anything he's going to say at a press conference. Anything he's going to say at a Wednesday, Thursday practice. Like I don't know that right now as I sit here, I can sit here and say, yes, sign me up for this. Because I think the other point to your point is, well, you can go to any of the message boards and chat, or you can go to Twitter, or you can go to Blue Sky, or you can go to Facebook. And those last three places are all free to talk about Penn State. You could be like Steve and I and have your own podcast, or you could have your own website and talk about it. I struggle with some of this. And then the other thing that I'm mildly fascinated, the one thing in the Penn State history buff to me that is most appealing is the archives. But how detailed are those archives? And how do those archives differ from what is publicly available on YouTube? Because you can watch a lot of Penn State games off of archives on YouTube. I think all of this is to say, like, it's a good idea. It is, I don't know that it's poor execution, but it is execution that it needs to be pretty damn near perfect for me to want to fork over $15 a month to get this.
When you mentioned BTN Plus, and I don't do that. So how much is BTN Plus?
Well, I had it free this year because there was a code with UCLA, and that was the first time that I had ever joined it. But let's call it. Let's just Google it. I'll just Google it here because I want to get the number right. Plus subscription. Nope, I don't want to cancel my subscription.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know what the level is that makes it valuable for people, right? Like you get a quarterly newsletter. It's going to be a digital newsletter. You get an app, which they're going to repackage some content. You can chat with other fans. That's $15, right?
You can do that on the message boards. You can do that on Facebook. You can get all of that from all of the various sources, all of the reporters we talk about. BTN Plus is $89.99 a year or $12.99 a month. Okay. So it is, and that is, to me, that is the most crucial access aside from football. That is the most crucial. Having access to BTN Plus has now become a crucial part. In part because we have this, like we have this little thing that we do, and we like to watch and talk about all of the Penn State sports, right? But I struggle with the $15, and as somebody that donates about that much money a month to Happy Valley United, where am I supposed to put my money? Like it's fine. I guess I can justify it a little bit more, but now I'm going to shut off my Happy Valley United subscription. And alternatively, why am I why am I not getting that with my Happy Valley United subscription?
Because your
You know what I mean?
$15 for Happy Valley United gets you invited to any in-person events yet or not?
No,
Nothing like that. Nothing.
no.
Okay.
It's I think you got to be at like 50 a month. I think I forget
No, I mean
what
somebody's got to make, but it's $250 here, right?
Right.
To in-person events. So those are decisions. The way it could work if they were more controlling, like country music wise. Garth Brooks, for example, shuts down almost all his stuff. Like you can't just stumble over some of his stuff, or you got to really look, or you got to pay him to do it. If they really shrank what they gave out and made it only available through something like this, then it becomes more valuable. But that's changing the whole paradigm because stuff's been out there. It's different. It's not music. It's not. So
And
you
you
could do that if you lock down your content differently and made it only available in one place. But that's just not been the DNA of it. And it can't possibly work because every team we just talked to Coach Kieger, right? The GM's job is to help come up NIL deals and make these kids do some stuff for their brand. Every team's going to be doing that because they're trying to get out there. So it just feels like there's going to be all this stuff at different places. It's all going to be competing with each other. So yay for trying it. I don't know that I see the value. And I guess if it helps them make money and not need me to buy tickets and people are happy, I guess I'm good. But I don't know.
I struggle with it. It looks like the silver pass on Happy Valley United gets you discounted pricing. Exclusive member reception is at $250, which is the Rose Pass.
Okay, well, this is $250. This is $250 as well to invites to select in-person events. So maybe they were smart enough to make those two things the same price at least.
And it says $100 a month is event access, so I don't know what the differentiator is. But yeah, it's just muddying the waters. It's a muddying of the waters, and that's not to say there isn't going to be good content here. It's not going to say like there's not going to be valuable stuff here. I just presently, as I sit here right now, I struggle with, as somebody that does have a lot of Penn State based subscriptions, I struggle with forking over the cash towards it.
Well, to talk totally out of both sides of my mouth and now
Go ahead.
switch gears, right? Like I think there could be good content there, right? Like this is going to be a place where student athletes who aren't getting attention can be. I mean, maybe there's some good women's basketball player that's great with content. Maybe there's a women's volleyball player. Maybe there's a hockey player, right? Who just aren't getting covered by the pay sites. It's not something that the athletic department's going to do as part of a release or a pregame thing. And maybe somebody's got some really cool stuff. I mean, could you imagine, well, it's football, but it would have gotten attention. But like John Urschel as a football player with like some kind of math podcast or something fun that he could do. Like there's probably some kid somewhere that on one of the teams that probably can have stuff that makes sense and the chats are interesting and they've got stories to tell or whatever else. And maybe they're a communications major and their skills are great. So there's probably going to be the potential for something to be there is good because you got 850 athletes, right? Like somebody's got to be able to do something. But I think that it's people like you who have to make a decision on what to pay for. It's just one more thing competing for your money.
Yeah. No, I think that's about where I'm at with it. I don't know. I'm not whelmed. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm just whelmed. Okay.
That's fair.
All
now
right.
I'm about to be overwhelmed with your big solution, though.
So, we, if you're watching on the podcast, we went to a NAX game last week.
Okay.
It was we've talked about this subject before on this podcast. I know we have. But it was a pan can night for Anna's work, so went down to DC, took the trip down. They were playing the quite literally one of the worst baseball teams of all time, the Colorado Rockies. I absolutely had to also go see that. And I think I have found the solution to getting into Beaver Stadium. Now, this is not the parking solution, which we are all collectively looking for, the holy grail of holy grails when it comes to Penn State football. We bought tickets, and they first off, they require you to use an app to do those. It's called MLB Ballpark. It is separate from the MLB app. The MLB app is for news. The MLB Ballpark is for going to games.
Okay.
Let's akin it to a Ticketmaster as opposed to like the Go PSU Sports app, for example.
Okay.
And on there was this prompt, and it said easy entry, I think, or let me get the correct vernacular here as I look this up. And I was like, oh, wonder what this is. MLB baseball game. Hold on, let me look this up. It is called MLB Go Ahead Entry. And I was like, let me look this up. And it's basically TSA pre-check and clear all rolled into one.
Okay.
For getting into a football or into a baseball stadium. So you take a selfie, and it uses facial recognition, and that is how you get into the stadium. You do not have to scan your ticket. You do not have to do anything. All you do is look directly at the camera, you walk through the metal detector, then you walk through and look directly at this camera, and it knows that it's me. You have to take a hat off, and that's about it. And it says, "Here you go. Go ahead in. You're good to go. Go ahead and get in." Fascinating on multiple levels. Number one, I think what was most interesting is there was a line of 30 to 40 people trying to get in, and there were probably about 10 of those lines trying to get in through the traditional scan my ticket opportunities. There was not a single person in line for the go ahead.
My kind of technology. I'm not a technology guy, but I'm a technology guy that cuts down on lines.
And I get people's anxiousness about facial recognition and all of that privacy, etc. And I don't think this would resolve or fit well with Penn State's older fan population for the most part that is not technologically equipped or with it or hip.
Might
but
not fit well with a portion of the fan base that's younger and not any of those things you just mentioned.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry.
There are students. There are people like me. There are probably a lot of people that would want to take advantage of the fact that it is easier to get in Beaver Stadium this way, should they go ahead and do this. I don't know what it costs. I'm sure it costs. It's a lot easier to quote unquote control because it's 32 MLB teams versus 120 college teams. But there can't be that many. Like this only makes sense at
there's 18
Ohio
Big
State,
Ten
Penn
teams,
State,
right? There's
Michigan,
right.
yeah. Like I think this is a legitimately fascinating opportunity to solve the crowds and getting into Beaver Stadium issues that I would urge fan of this podcast, Pat Kraft, to look into.
If it only serves to benefit me and not having to stand in line with the unwashed masses, I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
Like, hey, like the whole lines and the back and forth, and the people that have been trained for 10 years to like raise their arms to go to the magnetometers, which you don't have to do, and didn't make a difference, and now yes, sign me up. And I'm sure they're aware of those kind of things, because that's what I would hope they're aware of those kind of things.
Yeah.
That should do. You benchmark, you look at best practices. Sure, it's expensive, but partner with other Big Tens, be a test market in college sports if somebody isn't already doing it. Although I guess I'd be surprised if somebody wasn't already doing it, that shares a stadium or shares something along the line that
there has to be someone. Yeah.
So no, exciting. That's great. That would be a game changer.
And I think for me, that is one of the two biggest gripes about the game day fan experience. It's getting out of the parking lot, and it is getting into the stadium. Those are the two biggest challenges, because to your point, they've changed the rules and people don't have their tickets pre-saved and they stand there and all these things. I think, this, we talked about this when it first came out, and I was a little skeptical, but I was like, I'll try this, and I'm glad I tried it, because I will never not do this now anytime I go to a baseball game.
No, it sounds cool. I would do that.
Yeah. So, all right. Big fan.
Good solution. Good job.
Fan. Okay. That was some investigative reporting. This week's old guy, young guy.
What was the question? Household pests. Yeah. How do you deal with household pests or bug control or something along those lines? And you said you had stories. So I'm going to let that sit there and let you go.
Multiple stories. So for bugs and such, we do quarterly treatments. Shout out to Key Pest Control. They are very reasonably priced. And to be real honest, I haven't seen a bug in this house other than maybe the occasional spider here or there in the 3 years we've been doing it. I think that's the good one. When we first moved in the first summer, there was a lot of rain and there were some ants, and we were like, nope, we're not dealing with this. And so it's worth every penny. That one was an issue. However, the one that fires me up about this is because I feel like we got scammed on this. We had a problem with squirrels, as many people do in their house, getting in. There were at least 2 large squirrels at one point living in the subfloor between our first and second floor, so to speak. And then there was also maybe 1 living in the attic. We didn't love that, so we called this company that charged us an uncomfortable amount of money, more than I'm willing to admit on this podcast, to seal up the house in some shape or fashion. And I'll be honest, I think the guy only put like a guard over one vent. And sure enough, like within the last year, we've at least had 3 or 4 squirrels in through this domicile. So it was an absolute waste of money. Those are my pest home.
Okay.
Pests.
We did log homes initially. So our first log home got it built. Spring comes, go outside, and carpenter bees, right? Like I had thought about it, but hadn't thought about it. So I'm, growing up, I'm like all over the place. So I'm out there with a tennis racket, right? Like swinging at carpenter bees, like, any self-respecting homeowner would do. And then we found out they had this insecticide that you can put in stains. So when you restain the house, when you stain the house, it came in like a little 5-ounce bottle that you could put in a 5-gallon bucket. And you can't buy it anymore. Like this has been like 15 years. Like you literally can't buy the stuff anymore. They don't sell it anymore because I don't know what was in it. But when you mix it in with the stain and you put it on the eaves, and the next time the bees came, they would go, zzz, and they'd go, whoop, and drop, which is maybe why they don't sell it anymore. And we did quarterly forever for those. I started doing do-it-yourself stuff, like buy the stuff at Lowe's or Home Depot and spray that like every other month type deal to take care of it. And then 2 weeks ago, younger friend of one of the girls was talking about they're in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and we asked about that. Oh, I found this pest stuff, and again, like it's like doitonyourOwn.com or something like that, where he got it from that you couldn't buy, and you mix it in like a spray bottle, and like, okay, well that doesn't seem super expensive, and then maybe I'll do that for the outside. So I got a tank of that, I assume legal stuff as opposed to stuff that you can't buy anymore somewhere. So yeah,
we're gonna have like PETA after us after this episode or something like that.
I don't hurt the ants in the morning. We see the ants outside, like when it's hot in the summer and dry, they hang out, and then when it gets warmer, they go away. So I'm not out there killing stuff willy nilly. I just, nobody wants to see the stuff on the inside. You have your house out there. I'll have my house in here, and we'll all be fine.
I think that's a good way to approach that. Yeah, no, the thing we struggle with this house in particular though, our yard gets a lot of bugs, and they're called no-see-ums, and they're real annoying. They're like mosquitoes, but they're tinier, and they itch a lot more, but it's like a shorter experience. So like probably starting like about a week ago, it's now like we can't really spend that much time outside without having like a citronella lit or something lit. So been looking at these new bug zappers that are like a little like a little like table size candle almost, that supposedly
they had something in Alaska when we were there 8 or 10 years ago that you plugged into like a propane tank, and it would take care of mosquitoes in like a half-acre area. Like
that's all we need here.
Yeah. Well, I know. So I'm just saying, like I don't know what that was anymore, but I'm sure you can find it in the Google machine and figure that out.
Probably illegal now too.
Well, maybe only illegal in Alaska.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of things are different up there. Okay, that was this week's podcast. Thank you to Carolyn Kieger for joining us. Thought that was a great conversation. I probably this was as always with this podcast. That was my first take at getting feelings out about Roar Plus. How long do you think they thought about the name? That's the other question. How long do you think?
The plus was a given, right?
The plus is always coming.
The plus is a given. So then they needed to find something short, and they probably couldn't make it PSU Plus. So it was a half-hour conversation.
Okay.
At most, it should have been. If it was longer than that, shame on them.
Okay. If you know how long the conversation was, please let us know. We won't tell anyone.
We won't tell anybody it was you. Just let us know.
Yeah, we just want to know. I'm probably right about that this week. I also need to send out. I want to do our superstitions thing. I think that'll be a good topic for hopefully next week's podcast. So I'll put that out maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. Do that. That's about it on the blog this week. The blog is called stuffsummersays.com. On that blog, there's a section called With
Steve.
Anything from Steve this week?
I don't know. We'll see what fires me up.
Honestly, you fired up.
2 little runs, but we'll see.
Yeah, you were.
Never
Testy
know.
last week.
Yeah.
So we'll get there. 5 stars, thumbs up, subscribe. Appreciate that. I think the other thing is you can find or you can email us. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve's is
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Perfect. And lastly, you can find me on the internet at Stuff Summer Says. You can find Steve
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.